Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today we're going to be doing a video on how do you get started flipping furniture. Whether you want to make some extra income, you're thinking this may be a new hobby for you, or you may want to turn this into a business. Today's video is going to focus on getting started with a small piece, how you take a little bit of money and make a little bit more and keep going. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is find your piece of furniture. I found this piece on Facebook Marketplace and it was listed for $40. I contacted the seller through Facebook Messenger. It's the only way to do it. And I asked him, as you can see, if he would take less. He said, no problem. And then I noticed there was an issue with it. He said he fixed it. And he even said if it was still a problem, he would make sure he fixed it right for me. Went and picked it up and we were good to go.
Okay, so here's the piece here. And actually I came up with the idea for the video with this particular piece after I already started it. But all I've actually done at this point is just filled in some of the dents and dings. And you can see that right there. I still need to go ahead and clean it, and that I will do next. But I would suggest when you have little dents, dings, or heavy scratches, just fill them in with a little wood putty. It's gonna give you the best possible finish, and that's gonna give you the most amount of money out of your flip.
So we're gonna try to keep down the cost, the initial investment, as much as possible. So we know that I've paid $25 for the piece, which is really a good deal. This is a solid maple nightstand. I'm gonna try to keep down the product costs as much as I possibly can, especially for you guys, because you don't know if this is something you want to get into doing. Therefore, you don't want to put out a lot of money on all of the initial products that you may or may not use again for future projects. So I used wood putty. That's not a very expensive item, and it's something good to have around your household anyway. We're going to go ahead and clean this with a crud cutter or a TSP or TSP alternative. Again, something that is something you can use product-wise around your house, as well as it's not really expensive. Paper towels, everything I use today, I'm going to list in the show notes. The most expensive thing is going to be the paint that you choose. I'm going to use what I have currently in stock. I have a lot of paint in stock, so I'm going to choose something from my paint stock. And again, you can make a more economical choice if you would like. There are definitely a lot of furniture paints out there on the market at different price points. I'm going to list everything we use today in the show notes, and in the very end, I'm going to tell you exactly what I made on. So now we're going to go ahead and prep the piece. I'm using my crud cutters just in my own spray bottle. You want to go ahead, you can spray directly on the piece like you see me doing, and then wipe it down. I take all the drawers out. I wipe everything inside and out to make sure it is all clean. I always recommend after taking your crud cutter or TSP alternative, you want to go ahead and wipe it down with a damp, clean rag, water only. This will eliminate any issues that you could possibly have between your paint and your crud cutter. Okay, for today's video, I want to go over a couple of different brush options. I am going to be spraying this piece. And I do realize that if you're just getting started, you aren't probably going to be spraying it, and that is just fine. It's just that's what I do for, I would say probably about 95% of my pieces I spray. So I'm going to go ahead and spray this piece today, but I'm going to give you some different options. A really economical brush option is zebra brushes. I love these brushes and I do use them. Even though I spray a lot of my pieces, there are several techniques that I do use for brushing. And this is one of them. So zebra is a really good economical choice, and it'll give you a really nice finish. The next brush, this is a country chic brush. This is a really, really nice one as well. This one's brand new. You can tell I haven't even used it yet, but I have a similar one that I have put to good use. This is also a really good one, and it's a mid-price point. And then this is my favorite, which is, you can tell because over the years I have used this crazy. This is my Klingon F50 brush. This is probably one of my most favorites. This is a little bit more expensive of a price point. These are about $35. And so, you know, once you get to do this a little bit more, you can start investing in better tools. But just know there are good tools at good price points. The paint we're going to use today is Fusion, and this is the color Chateau. I'm actually going to do this to match another piece that I already have in my inventory, and so I'm going to keep it the same. And it's a really great project piece to show you guys because it's also going to be staining the top. So I'm going to go through several different processes that you may be interested in learning. Now for your first project, you may not want to tackle sanding and staining and doing all the things, but at least you'll have this video to reference if you do in the future. So we're going to paint the body in Fusion Chateau, we're going to sand the top, and we're going to use a stain on that and top coat it. So I'm kind of going to show you all the things so you have those in your arsenal and you're ready to go. I almost forgot a step that I want to mention. Now this is an optional step, but it's one that I typically do, and obviously I forgot to do it, but it can be done after you clean, and that's scuff sand your piece. So sometimes you might have kind of a slick or shiny surface. You may want to go ahead and give it a quick scuff sand. These are sanding pads. They're run between medium and fine or extra fine. I've got these in my Amazon shop, and I will link them below in the show notes for you. But these are a fantastic way of just making sure that you're giving that paint maximum adhesion to your piece. So if you forget to do it before you clean, don't worry. You can do it afterwards and then just wipe it off again really quick with just a dry rag. In case you are wondering what spray system I'm using, I just upgraded. This is my brand new system, and this is the Fuji Platinum Q4. It's a beautiful machine, but believe me when I tell you, this is not a starter spray system. I started with my Urlex 5500, and that lasted me for years. I just recently upgraded because of the volume that I do. I really wanted something a little more aggressive as far as my sprayer. Let me show you the Urlex. This is the Urlex spray station. As you can tell, it's gotten a lot of use over the years. But this is what I started out with when I started spraying. And I swear by it, it is a great unit. It is a 2-stage turbine unit, whereas my new one is a 4-stage. It's got more power, and there's just a lot more upgrades to the system. But this is a great system at a great price point. You don't need an independent compressor. It's all built into this all-in-one unit. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. This is my Klingon F30 brush. It's a great thin trim brush. And I'm going to paint by hand the front here, and then we'll spray the sides just to give you guys an idea of how both work. You don't always have to prime whites. I do typically recommend doing so. I know this piece isn't going to bleed through, so I'm not concerned. Whites are typically tough to cover, so do expect to get at least 3 coats for full coverage. Sometimes you can get away with 2 depending on the brand, so we'll just have to see how this one goes. Right, I had to adjust the camera angle just a little bit so you guys could actually see what I was working on. So I'm going to go ahead and continue painting all the trim, and then on the edges here you'll see in just a moment I'm going to go ahead and put on my front edge, and then I'm going to shift the piece so you guys can see. Whenever you're working on 2 pieces that butt up together, you want to make sure you don't have any overlap. So I'm going to do exactly what I just showed you there with my brush, and then wipe it with my finger to make sure I don't have any buildup there on that other edge. I also want to show you a very economical way of elevating your piece off of the ground. I forgot I wanted to show you these. See, there's so many things that I've been doing for so long, sometimes I forget that they're really vital parts of the whole process. Pieces of wood. You don't need anything fancy. You don't need rollers. You don't need to spend a bunch of money. Literally, these are pieces of scrap wood. So what am I going to use these for? I'm going to show you. I'm going to put it under the piece of furniture to elevate it, because when you are painting it, the last thing you do want to do is make sure that it, doesn't stick to either the ground that you're painting on. You don't want to paint the ground, or you don't want it to stick to your drop cloth. You can see I just slide those wood pieces right underneath the feet, and it elevates it off the ground, makes it easier for painting. Okay, so this is first coat. It is all dry. I want you guys to know that this is what it looks like normally on the first coat. Fusion actually has really good coverage. You will see some brush strokes in here. For one, it's because you are working with a brush, but for 2, because this is the first coat, and first coats are never beautiful. So don't be scared when you're getting started that the first coat doesn't look beautiful. Let's go ahead and get the second coat on here, and then I'll show you how it looks. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and use my sprayer on the sides, and you can see why I like using my sprayer. Look at how much real estate gets covered with a sprayer pretty fast. So I'm gonna go ahead and put on my first coat here and let that dry, but this will give me more of like a manufactured looking finish. Next is to do my drawers, and this is my little cardboard trick to get the edges without spraying overspray all over the inside of the drawer. Works like a charm every time. Okay, I want to show you guys, this is the second coat, up brushing, all dried down. I'm getting them really close so you guys can see. But how beautiful is that? So it just goes to show you, you don't have to spray to get a beautiful finish. Good tools and good products will help you achieve that. Did go ahead, this is currently drying. This is the first coat and got that on there. Now I want to show you guys something. And I didn't notice this until it was painted, and sometimes that happens where things don't really stick out when they're in their natural state, but as soon as you put a product on them, it kind of pops up, and that's this little crack or split right here. So I'm gonna wait for this to dry. I'm gonna fill that with a little wood putty. I'll sand it and it'll be all taken care of. But those are things sometimes you can't see before you put the paint on, and it's absolutely okay to go back and fix afterwards. So that is one of those products that is always handy to have on hand, and that's wood putty. All I'm gonna do here is take a little bit of this putty. I just take it with my finger, and I'm gonna go ahead and just fill that little line right there. And I'm gonna fill that one while I'm at it. Go back and get the top of that one there. And there's another one right there. So once those are dry, I can go ahead and sand that off smooth, and it will have filled those little teeny cracks. Once they're dry, what I go ahead and do is just take my 320 grit sandpaper and I just give it a quick little sand right over it. This is very hard to do while I'm holding the camera, and I am holding the camera right now, but you get the idea. So you're just gonna sand right over it, and that little crack will be all filled in. Whenever I'm painting a piece, no matter how big or how small, I always put that piece on its back so that I can get underneath the underside of it and paint all of that detail there. All right, so we're at the end of our second coat. As you can see, it's all nicely finished now underneath, so that if you catch a little glimpse of it from the side when it's standing up, everything's nice and finished. It's just an extra added little touch that doesn't take you long, and I recommend doing it. As soon as this is dry, I'll pop it up on its feet, put the drawers in, and then we'll probably wait until tomorrow to go ahead and tackle the top, where we're gonna sand and stain and seal it. I'll show you guys the little repair that I did where I filled those few little cracks. This is the exact area, and as you can see, they are all gone. So that stuff works like a charm. Once you fill it in and you sand it down and paint over it, you'll never see it. So we're ready to get started on the next segment of the video, and that is sanding, staining, and top coating the piece. Now you might see I have two sanders here, and there's a reason for that. So this is my Mercadero's 5.0 orbital sander. This was my upgrade a few years back from my original sander. Now just getting started, you aren't going to be investing in something like that. It's quite the investment. I also have it hooked in here to my Festool CT MIDI HEPA dust collection system, a mouthful. Anyway, these are things that if you continue to do this, you may invest in down the road. What you really need is just an orbital sander. This was my very first one. This is made by DeWalt. It is a 5-inch variable speed orbital sander, and it starts at about $69 to $79. So it's an affordable tool that you can have if you're going to be refinishing furniture and just getting started. So that's what I would recommend, not something like this. You don't need this, but I just wanted to address that because this is what I'm going to use in the video. Okay, so there's a little bit of a process when it comes to sanding a piece. First of all, we are working with a solid wood piece, so we know we can be a little bit more aggressive in our grits when we're sanding. So I'm going to start with 100. I don't have any 80 on hand, but if you had 80 grit, you can start there if you want to. Then we're going to move up and we're going to go to 120. After 120, we're going to go up to 150. Now you can end there if the wood is plenty smooth enough. I would not recommend when you're staining going any finer than 180 grit. It can be too fine if you go higher than that and change how the stain imparts to the wood evenly. So we don't want to do that. 180 is really where you want to stop. The other thing is you're not trying to get off the entire finish with your first grit of sandpaper. You want to work through the grits for several reasons. One of them is you are working with an orbital sander, which is swirling, and it can put in swirl marks, which you don't want to do. That comes from pressure, putting too much pressure, and not switching out the grits as well. So when you switch out the grits and start working up as you're removing your finish, you'll come out with a really beautiful end result.
To figure out if something is indeed a solid wood top or not, the first thing I do is I come around to the back side and I'm looking here at this. This indicates right here, this is a solid wood piece all the way through. When it's not, it will look like, this portion would look like MDF or pressboard. You can tell the difference between the top and then what's here right underneath it. So this is a solid wood piece, but that's a good indicator, is to come around the back side of it and take a look. Stopped filming for a minute just so I could show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. That is what's called a swirl mark. Now that happened right off the bat. I'm not putting too much pressure on. I'm just trying to get off my finish, and that swirl mark kind of happens. It'll happen from time to time. Not to worry, as I move up through the grits, I will make sure that I sand any of those out.
Now I'm gonna go ahead and continue around the sides, but I just wanted you guys to see how this is not perfect. This is our first pass with our most aggressive grit. Now we're gonna stop and we're gonna move on once I do the sides and put on the 120. Okay, so here we are. It is sanded down to 150. It is buttery smooth. I'm not going any finer than that. It looks really, really good. So now we're ready for our stain. Today's video, I'm going to be using Varathane's wood stain in Kona. It is a 1 hour, 1 coat stain. I'm going to be using a good foam brush. I recommend good foam brush for application and white rags to wipe it back. All right, so now it's time to go ahead and wipe back our stain. I typically let the stain sit on for about a minute or two, and then I start wiping back with the direction of the wood grain. Super important here. I also flip my rag so that it's always clean and I'm not continually dragging more product. Just keep going until you get all of that product off. Okay, so now we have our first coat of stain on. What do we do with this? Well, we're gonna keep this. We don't need to spend more money on more products. So I take this with some plastic wrap, I wrap it all up, and then when I'm ready for my second coat, I can reuse the same one. Now, this is a 1 hour stain. I have been using this stain for years. I love it, but I typically wait longer than the 1 hour to recoat because I feel like you get more depth and color out of your next coat if you wait a little longer. It's totally up to you. Just know this is a 1 hour stain, which means you can recoat in 1 hour. I'm gonna give it a couple of hours. It's a beautiful day today, so it'll probably really set up real nice and fast. I'll give this a couple hours, come back and do my second coat. Then what I normally do is wait until the next day before I top coat. So we'll work on that tomorrow. Okay, so I went ahead and took my saran wrap off. My brush is still good to go, and so I'm just gonna reuse that one, applying my second coat. Now, as I was saying, you can absolutely put on more than 1 coat. Even though this says 1 coat coverage, you can do more than 1. I typically do. I like a little more depth to my stain, and I like it to have a little bit deeper, darker look. But it's all a preference in what you're looking for to get out of your final finished product.
Here is the end of coat 2. We're going to go ahead and let this dry, and then our final step will be to go ahead and top coat this.
All right, everyone, that is it. We are at the end of the video. I hope this video was helpful for you today. This is how I started. I started with one piece of furniture, minimal investment, turned a profit, and I was hooked. Now, whether you're doing this for extra money, you've got a goal, you've got some vacation to save for, you've got some debt to pay off, you want to start this as a hobby, or maybe even a business. I can tell you from someone who started this exact same way, I now, 7 years later, run a full-time sustainable business refinishing furniture. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And please remember, if you need more detailed information, more one-on-one, I do offer one-on-one lessons. You can purchase direct from my website. I'll go ahead and put right here my website. You can go directly to there, purchase a one-on-one lesson for more focused one-on-one coaching. Thank you so much for subscribing. If you aren't subscribed, please make sure you go hit that subscription button as well as the post notification bell so that you're notified when all of my latest videos come out. Helps you be a part of my YouTube community and keeps my channel supported and going. Thank you again, and I'll catch you on the next video.